Tonight, a clock in Parchman, Mississippi ticked its final seconds toward a moment half a century in the making. Outside, the air was heavy, still, like the world itself was holding its breath. Inside, a man who had outlived most of his jurors lay strapped to a gurney. His name was Richard Gerald Jordan, Mississippi's longest-serving death row inmate. For nearly 50 years, he waited for this exact moment, the moment the state would decide that time had run out. But before that needle found his vein, one question cut through everything. When justice takes almost a lifetime, is it still justice at all? He was 79, a Vietnam veteran, a man whose name had become a footnote in Mississippi's death penalty history. Yet tonight, his story reopened a wound the state had tried to close decades ago, because the crime that put him here was one so cold, so deliberate, that the people who remember it still flinch when they hear her name, Edwina Marter. Let's rewind. It's 1976, a quiet neighborhood in Gulfport, Mississippi. Edwina Marter is at home when a stranger knocks at the door. He's polite, calm. He says he's from the power company, there to check something. But that knock was the sound of a plan already in motion. Jordan abducted her, drove her miles away, and killed her. Then he made a ransom call to her husband, pretending she was still alive, demanding $25,000 for her return. By the time police found her, the truth was already too late. The trial that followed was swift. The jury didn't need convincing. The evidence was brutal and clear. The judge pronounced death. And so began one of the longest journeys through the American justice system. A journey that would test patience, policy, and the meaning of punishment itself. Years passed. Decades rolled by. Appeals rose and fell like tides. Judges retired. Lawyers changed. Governors came and went. But Richard Jordan stayed, locked in a 6x9 cell. His life paused between guilt and execution. Every few years, the headlines returned. Oldest man on Mississippi death row. Every time, the public asked the same question. Why is he still alive? Why hasn't the state acted? Because the system that sentenced him was the same one that kept him alive. Every new appeal brought a new twist. Jury issues, sentencing errors, lethal injection challenges. His death warrant was signed and cancelled more than once. Each time it seemed over, a lawyer would find another legal thread to pull, keeping the case open just a little longer. And every time, the Marter family had to relive the nightmare, dragged back into courtrooms filled with ghosts. But something changed as the years piled on. The killer, who had once been 26, was now a frail old man, his hair white, his back bent. Some began to ask, if the purpose of the death penalty is justice, not vengeance, what justice is left to serve when the condemned man can barely stand? Was this still punishment, or had it become endurance? By the time 2025 arrived, Mississippi was ready to finish what began in 1976. The courts had denied every motion. The Supreme Court refused to intervene. The governor declined clemency. The date was set, June 25th, 2025. For the Marter family, it was an ending too long delayed. For Jordan, it was the day he'd been both fearing and preparing for half a lifetime. At 6 p.m., witnesses filled the small viewing room at the Mississippi State Penitentiary. The fluorescent lights were harsh, the air cold. Reporters shuffled papers. A curtain slid open. Jordan looked up, met the faces behind the glass, and spoke. "To the family," he said, "I am sorry for what I did. I pray you find peace." He thanked the prison staff, told his wife he loved her, and ended with, "I'll see you on the other side." A minute later, the drugs began to flow. 6:16 p.m. Richard Gerald Jordan was pronounced dead by lethal injection. But here's the part that doesn't fit neatly into a headline. This wasn't just another execution, it was a test of time itself. 49 years on death row, more than half a lifetime waiting to die. He had outlasted governors, attorneys, and other inmates who came after him. The crime was monstrous. The punishment was relentless. Yet in the space between those two truths lived a question that refuses to die. If justice takes 50 years, does it still heal, or does it simply haunt everyone left behind? In the Marter home, there's still a photograph on the mantle, Edwina smiling, sunlight on her face. For her family, this was closure, but not relief. No verdict, no injection can rewind to the day before she was taken. For them, the justice system ended where their grief began. For others, the execution reignited a larger debate. What does it mean for a society to hold the power to kill? Is justice measured by years served or by lives changed? If mercy is weakness, what do we call the strength it takes to forgive? And then comes the final cliffhanger, the one no law can close. Because tonight, after the cameras leave and the headlines fade, two truths remain. One, a murderer faced his sentence. Two, a woman named Edwina never came home. Between them is the story of a country still deciding what kind of justice it believes in. Say her name, Edwina Marter, because she's the reason this story exists at all. Say his name, Richard Gerald Jordan, because his execution forces us to ask what justice costs and who pays the price. In the end, the clock in Parchman stopped, but the questions it left behind are still ticking.